So earlier in the show, we talked about the hearings that took place yesterday, primarily about the January 6th Trump riots. And we spoke about Merrick Garland and other Biden officials explaining in very clear terms white supremacists are the top domestic terror threat. That wasn't really the main focus of these hearings. The main focus of these hearings was actually what on earth happened on January 6th. And one of the big questions about January 6th has been, did Trump get asked to deploy the National Guard early and refused? Did Donald Trump not think about it? What exactly explained the delay? Where we were still watching in the 4 p.m. Eastern hour, and there were no National Guard, and the riots had been going on for hours. Protesters and rioters and insurrectionists had breached the Capitol building. People had already died, etc., etc. Well, yesterday during testimony, and this is just unbelievable, Trump's former acting Secretary of Defense confirmed that Donald Trump did not approve the plan to deploy the National Guard until Mike Pence called him more than 3 hours after the Capitol riot began. Yesterday, this was the testimony from Chris Miller. Chris Miller was Trump's acting defense secretary for that last period of the Trump administration. And he said that it was a more than 3 hour delay from when the Capitol riot started to when Donald Trump actually authorized the National Guard to go in. And of course, we know that it took a while for the National Guard to actually get on site. It was already starting to really become evening when that really took place. And it took a phone call from Mike Pence convincing him to do it before he was actually willing to sign off on that. At first, former acting defense secretary Chris Miller testified that he gave full authorization to deploy members of the National Guard at 3 p.m., which was about 2 hours. Remember, right around 1 p.m. Eastern, we were all watching it live. We were streaming live. About 1 p.m. is when the breach started. 3 p.m. is initially what Chris Miller said was the timing. Miller was then questioned by New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she started going more specifically into the timeline of January 6th. And then we eventually learned that actually the National Guard was not authorized to go to the Capitol until 4:32 p.m. Eastern time. And the delay, it's a little nebulous what the delay even was. Part of it was coming up with a plan for exactly how it would be done, and so on and so forth. But what's really interesting is that the testimony revealed a conversation between Miller and Mike Pence at 4:08 p.m. And AOC asked, "Did Pence direct you to clear the building?" And Miller said, "Well, I had a very brief conversation with Mike Pence where we agreed that the building would be cleared, but the order to actually do it was not issued until later, after a conversation with the mayor of Washington, D.C., after a conversation with Speaker Nancy Pelosi, after a conversation with Senate, at the time it was Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. And it was 3 hours after the mayor of D.C. actually asked for that deployment. So there are really a couple of possibilities here. Neither of them is particularly good, and I would kind of summarize them as either incompetence or what some might call treason. Others might call indifference. I don't know. One possibility is Trump and his executive branch realized the danger of what was going on right away. They understood the urgency of getting the National Guard in quickly, but it took them 3.5 hours to do it because they were either inept or they couldn't figure out how to do it, or they were slow or whatever. So that makes them weak. That makes them incompetent. That makes them everything that they showed us they are during the Trump administration. That's one possibility. The second possibility is, in a sense, maybe even worse, which is that Trump knew exactly what was going on January 6th, starting at 1 p.m. And we believe that he did because we are aware of the fact that everybody at the White House was watching what was going on. And that he chose to delay or not to send National Guard to the Capitol because of the political orientation of the people who were rioting, which were Trump's supporters. And of course, that unfortunately seems to me the more likely explanation. And the reason I say that is we know that Donald Trump and everybody at the White House were watching what was going on. We have reports that Trump was increasingly getting agitated and annoyed that the rioters looked low class and as Trump supporters made Donald Trump look bad, which is absolutely something you only say if you have an understanding of what it is that is going on. And so if you ask me, was this incompetence or was this a malicious attitude? I probably lean towards the malicious attitude based on everything I know. If you are coming away with this with a different perspective, let me know. But every time we learn something new, every time there's a new revelation, it points not only to incompetence by the Trump administration. Yes, there was plenty of incompetence, but it points to an uncaring, malicious, and in some cases, borderline treasonous perspective to what was going on that day on January 6th. If you've been watching the show, you've probably heard me talk about how much I love my Helix mattress. Well, I was really excited to hear that Helix has launched a new company called Allform, which makes premium, customizable sofas and chairs with the same level of quality and comfort that I expect from these guys. And Allform is one of our sponsors today. They're giving you 20% off at allform.com/Pakman. They actually sent me a couch, which I put in my living room at home. It's now my favorite piece of furniture in the house. It took me just minutes to set it up. It's solidly built. It's huge. It's roomy. It has a modern minimalist design, which I love, but it's also very comfortable. Fabric is soft, clearly very high quality. It has become the focal point of my living room. Their prices are very reasonable. And when you get a new sofa or chair, you get 100 days to decide if you want to keep it. And the best part is everything comes with a lifetime warranty. Stop buying poorly made furniture. Go to customize your own Allform sofa or chair right now and get 20% off your entire order when you get there by going to allform.com/Pakman. I've also put the link right underneath this video.